Welcome back to Far From Perfect, everyone. Today we are talking to Tina Haupert of Carrots and Cake. She's the founder of Carrots and Cake, and she's a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I did have to write that down.
Yes, it's a mouthful for sure.
Can you tell us what that is, the functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner?
Yes, 100%. So I basically use functional testing. So gut testing, hormone testing, mineral testing, those are definitely our favorites. But I use that testing and the data we get from that to correlate with our clients' symptoms to help create a customized program and plan for them moving forward. And as I always say to our clients, there's a million ways to get healthy. There's so many things that you can do. But if you really want like a targeted approach, let's get that data and figure out what the heck is going on in your body and really prioritize what is most important as far as getting you to your goals, as far as your health goals go. Because a lot of times, like metabolism, thyroid, blood sugar issues can kind of get in the way of those body composition goals and just feeling your best. So a lot of times it's just gathering that data and really making things simple for people in the sense that we're gathering data, but then how are we actually making this happen? Like, what is the day-to-day execution of it? So
Absolutely.
it's like I kind of nerd out with it. I really love it. I think it's so fascinating.
Well, I want to talk more about your background and everything that you do at Carrots and Cake, but since we just talked about this, in an ideal world, I would love for every single person that I work with to have this as well, because from my own experience, like last year, as I noticed perimenopausal symptoms entering, starting to appear in my body, one of the things I noticed was I went into a deficit after spending a lot of time in maintenance, and I didn't lose weight. I didn't maintain my weight. I gained weight.
Oh,
So then,
yeah.
I went and did the testing and we found out, then I was able to like implement certain protocols and move forward. But I really feel like you do need this whole picture in order to get the plan that's best for you.
Yeah. And that's super common. And I mean, most of the women we work with are in that weird perimenopause phase, and yeah, things change a lot. So it's really important as far as like gathering that data so you know what's going on in your body. And yeah, just things like hormones, blood sugar, so many things change as we get older. So for us, like using that data just to have a different approach. Because as I always say, it's never one thing. And then what worked in your 20s doesn't work in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Like you're almost doing like the opposite of what you should be doing. So it's just a different approach, 100%.
Yeah. So what were the symptoms of perimenopause that you experienced yourself?
Oh my gosh. So I feel like I'm the classic example. And this is probably why I love all this so much because I was that girl. I was on the pill, started the pill when I was in college, and was on the pill for a really, really long time, and experienced a lot of those like estrogen dominant symptoms where estrogen is too high in comparison to progesterone. So a lot of PMS symptoms like the mood swings, the irritability, sore breasts, cramping, heavy periods, headaches before my period, night sweats before my period, all of that. So dealt with high estrogen symptoms for a while. And this is why perimenopause is really fun because you can have high estrogen or low estrogen and it can fluctuate so much. And then now I'm almost 43. So now I'm dealing with more of the low estrogen symptoms. So it's just a little bit different of an approach as far as what I'm doing now. But yeah, I feel like I'm the classic story. And I think that's part of my motivation for working with women and helping women through this, because I do think if you just go to your regular primary care doctor or an OBGYN, they're going to do the blood testing and all that. But I just feel like a lot of times you're quote unquote normal and you get a lot of dead ends, like what you see on the blood work is fine and everything. Like as I joke around, you're not going to die because, your estrogen's like out of whack or whatever, but you're not going to feel your best. So I just think I got so many dead ends that I was like, I need to figure this out. I don't want to feel this way every single day. I don't want to be yelling at my dog because like my hormones are like out of whack. I just like want to feel balanced and normal. And that's part of my reason for, what I do with women. And then also going that functional route. I was like, there's just got to be more to the story.
Absolutely. Well, you would mention, what was working for us in our 20s isn't going to work for us in 40s, 50s, 60s. So what are some of those shifts that you help clients make? Because I know it is hard to change our way. We did it for so long and it did work for us, but things are different now. So how do you help clients adjust to what will work for them? What's that look like?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing that I see is stress, and that's on so many different levels. It could be mental, emotional, but it could also be physical. And this is kind of what I'm saying about like what you did in your 20s worked. Like you could, stay up all night drinking beer, go for a 5 mile run the next day, and lose 5 or 10 pounds before your vacation. No problem. But when you're in your 40s, doing that just puts so much stress on your body. And as we get older into this, perimenopause phase, a lot of those hormones slow down. So we really become less resilient to stress. And then I think about the women we work with. They're working full time, they have kids at home, they're trying to do everything perfect, they're trying to get their workouts in, they're not sleeping great. All of that is just stress, stress, stress. So you add in the high intensity exercise, like the Orange Theory, the Peloton, the under eating, the intermittent fasting. That is just more and more stress on your body. And I really think that can mess with your hormones, your blood sugar, your cravings. So a lot of times for us, it's just helping clients manage that stress, mental, physical, emotional, like the whole bit. But sometimes it's just small tweaks. And I think a lot of women are really hard on themselves. So I think a lot of times doing less better is what gets these ladies results instead of trying to do 8 million things and stressing out their bodies and doing it perfectly. But I feel like the stress a lot of times is like at the heart of what's going on. Because it also can be blood sugar dysregulation, low thyroid, metabolism issues, insulin issues. There's so many like types of stress. And a lot of times like the testing can help us, rule out those things or get a more focused approach as far as like what to do with low blood sugar or high blood sugar or low thyroid or something like that.
I think it's really interesting. I did a poll in my group coaching program that I have, and I said, where do you feel like you need the most improvement? Is it nutrition? Is it workouts? Is it stress management? Is it sleep? And I wasn't really surprised, but I was glad that they recognized stress won by far.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think we're now starting to understand the repercussions, but I don't know if everyone understands how to reduce the stress. Like you just said, doing less better. I think that's a really powerful statement because how else can you reduce stress? The kids aren't going to go away. Job's not going to go away, hopefully. So how else can we do this? How
Yeah,
do
yeah.
clients manage their stress?
Yeah, and that's 100% something that I dealt with for years and years. I knew I was stressed. I was doing too much. And I mean, granted, the functional testing did help me a little bit, like see it on paper to be like, you are actually really freaking stressed. So like the data is helpful, but it took a lot for me actually to make changes. And I think in those situations, I did feel really overwhelmed. Like you were saying, like you can't just quit your job, you can't get rid of your kids. Like there's got to be, something you can do. But that's kind of how I approached it. I was like, what can I do today that is going to help me like manage the stress? And sometimes it was simple as like, I'm going to go upstairs and take a shower and spend 20 minutes doing my face routine and not talk to anybody. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it really is kind of just those like little everyday things. Because if you look at the big picture, I almost feel like that's more overwhelming. So I always tell our clients, I'm like, what can you do today? Let's take this day by day. Like, how can we make this easier for you instead of just piling 6 million things on top of what you're already doing? Like, I don't want to say dumb it down, but like, how can we simplify this?
I love that so much because I agree. When we start talking about managing our stress, then even I'm like, so now I've got to meditate. Awesome. Now I
Yeah.
got to go for another walk. And now I got to read this book. And it's like, oh my God, now I'm really stressed about being stressed.
100%.
Well, I
Been
have
there.
to ask you, since you brought up intermittent fasting, everyone's like, why are you the only one that says not to fast, Kylie? I'm like, I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. Tina says don't fast either. Can you talk about why intermittent fasting it's not helping a lot of us, most of us?
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those, it depends, on the client for sure, but I would say 90% of our clients are coming to us with really high cortisol issues or really low cortisol issues. So when you put some like not eating into that, it can be even more stressful on the body. It's called a hormetic stress. But also I think most of these women, when they're talking about fat loss and weight loss, it's really more like, how can we put on some muscle and maintain that muscle? I think that's probably the key thing. And what I say to our clients all the time is like, I think you would look better with 5 pounds of muscle on your body instead of trying to lose 5 pounds of fat, like on the scale or weight on the scale.
Yeah.
So when you don't eat, especially like with intermittent fasting and around your workouts and whatnot, you're just not getting enough calories as far as like building muscle, maintaining muscle, because muscle doesn't come out of nowhere. Like you need calories, you need a stimulus as far as strength training goes. So every time you're like not eating, you're like missing out on those gains. And a lot of these women are doing these super long fasts, or dealing with like low blood sugar issues. And I just feel like it's not the smartest strategy. I think, not, stopping you're eating at dinner and then eating at breakfast, that's fine. That's like a good amount of time to, let your digestion rest and digest and things like that. But going, 16, 20 hours, like people doing 24-hour fasts, I just don't think it's like the best for your body as far as like those body composition goals go.
Absolutely. I know someone, I talk a lot about the fasting as well. And someone said, well, I don't wake up hungry. I don't feel, I'm like, yeah, me either. Like I fast for 12 hours. I just don't call it something. It's just like, I don't eat after dinner and then I eat breakfast at around 8:39. Why do we have to call it something? It's just living. Well, yes, you did post about this. The gaining 5 pounds of muscle will be more beneficial than losing 5 pounds. It's so true. I mean, yes, there are people that we work with that do have weight to lose and they need that to be healthy, but I don't want to give it like a number range, but like if anyone's in that like 130, in my opinion, you definitely have no weight to lose. If you weigh 130 pounds, you ain't got no weight to lose. So like that 150, 160 mark, it's not about the weight loss, really. It's about building the muscle. That's what's going to give us what we want.
Yeah. And muscle, I just feel like maybe women don't know like all the details, but the reason for building muscle is so you have that like toned look. Like muscle and fat are two different tissues. They're totally different. So it's almost like putting muscle under that fat can look really, really different than just like losing weight on the scale. And then the more muscle you have on your body, the more optimized like your metabolism is as far as using insulin and blood sugar and whatnot. There's more insulin receptors on your muscles. So it just makes you more sensitive to insulin. So in the long run, you're probably going to be able to maintain your weight a whole lot easier and better and like keep the weight off for the long run. So yeah, it's not about just cutting calories. I say, if anything, you really want to like build that muscle and then make sure you're eating enough to like fuel those muscles and whatnot. Then I think the body composition changes come along.
Absolutely. And as we do get older, I mean, yes, I still want to look as great as I can up until whenever, but the benefits of the muscle go far beyond just the aesthetic. It's everything that you just mentioned. If we want to be healthy and doing all the things that we love to be doing in our 80s, muscle is the key. Keep on lifting, ladies. So I did want to ask you about your personal experience with burnout. You kind of alluded to it a second ago when you saw the information that the test gave you, that data was invaluable. So can you define or give your definition of what burnout is? And then we'll talk about what you experienced and how you got out of it.
Oh, yes. So I am very familiar with burnout.
I'm sorry.
And I would say it's the advanced stages of stress. So how I like to explain it to our clients, and what I was talking about on my test that I saw, is that we hear about high cortisol all the time, where it's elevated, blood sugar goes hand in hand with high cortisol, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like with cortisol, you don't want too much and you don't want too little. But I think initially women deal with this like high cortisol, but high cortisol actually doesn't feel bad. Like you have some adrenaline. It's like, I would say like you can kick butt and take names, you know what I mean? Like that mentality, like you can do all the things. And I think a lot of women go through this. I went through this where I was doing everything. I was like crushing life. Everything felt good. But the thing about cortisol is eventually it becomes low cortisol. It's like your body can't keep pushing out cortisol, and high cortisol eventually becomes a low cortisol. And that really is like what burnout is. And low cortisol feels awful. Like you are so tired all the time. You have like energy crashes. You're dealing with blood sugar issues. You're dragging your butt out of bed every single day. That's really when I put on a lot of weight, and it kind of came out of nowhere. Like it was, like 3 months, I gained like 10 or 15 pounds, and I really didn't do anything differently. Although went hand in hand with that was some thyroid stuff too, which also goes hand in hand. So it was like a few things going on. But yeah, it was just a really rough time in my life. And honestly, I ignored the symptoms for years. I mean, years and years and years of me dealing with cortisol issues and stress and everything. And I didn't make changes to my life until it got so bad. Like I didn't have a choice at that point. And I just felt so awful.
Well, I think this is really interesting. I mean, there's a few people that like right immediately like pop into my mind, and I'm like, please, please go take the test. Now, was this a Dutch test scenario that gave you this data?
Yep. So that was the Dutch. And it was years because I had seen the high cortisol, still was living my life and crushing my body in so many ways. And then eventually did a Dutch and saw the low cortisol. And then it finally clicked.
So then how did you get out of it? How did you go from burnout to you appear to be thriving? How'd you do that?
Yes, I'm so much better now. So much better. Really like, and a lot of women don't like to hear this, but I really stopped working out so hard. Like I was doing Orange Theory at the time. I stopped Orange Theory, was a lot more low key with my exercise. I just did strength training and I cut back a ton. Like I was strength training maybe 2 or 3 times a week and then just walking. But it took me a good 2.5 years to really feel better. So I know I tell my story and women are like, this is going to take me years. And I'm like, well, it probably took you years to get here. So yeah, it's going to take you years to kind of unravel this. And also, I didn't stop working out altogether. I didn't quit my job. I mean, obviously, I was still writing Carrots and Cake and running groups and doing one-on-one coaching and doing 1,000 things. I wrote a book in there. There's like a lot of things that I was doing. So I didn't immediately just shut down my life and, sat on the couch all the time. Like I was still kind of working through this. So it took me a really long time to get there, 2.5 years. So I think if you're really serious about recovering from burnout, you just need to sit on the couch, sleep more, not stress out your body, eat enough food. But yeah, it took me like a little while to like figure it out because it wasn't easy for me to make those changes. I mean, if you think about behavior change, it's uncomfortable. It's hard. It took me a while to get there. So I don't think it will take everybody 2.5 years to get to a good place, but I made a lot of mistakes during that time. So I think that's probably why I talk about it all the time because I'm like, don't do this.
But also, I mean, whether it takes 2.5 years, 6 months, or 3 years, what's the alternative? Like to keep feeling like shit all the time? Oh, I'm so happy for you that you're not in that place anymore.
Yeah, so much better. I have energy every day. I'm happy. Like, honestly, like, I don't want to sound like annoying, but I'm kind of like always happy.
Yeah.
I like always feel good for the most part. So yeah,
Well,
it's just
and you've earned that because you did make those behavior changes because that is so hard. And that's why, I mean, I can see why we get stuck in these familiar patterns. Well, what if I stop? That's scary. I get that. What if I stop going to Orange Theory 5 times a week? Are they just going to take our word for it? I mean, we hope that they do, but that's scary.
Yeah, 100%.
What kind of workouts do you recommend that your clients do?
I am big on strength training. Like I just love it. And I just think it gets you the best results as far as like changing your physique, making your body more sensitive to insulin. Like there's so many good things about muscle and having muscle. So that would be my primary recommendation for our clients. But I'm not like a cardio hater. I think I get that reputation a lot because I've talked about Orange Theory so much. And Orange Theory at its heart is not a bad workout. I just think the types of women we work with, it's not ideal for them because, they're not sleeping and then they're going to like a 5:15 Orange Theory class. And I'm just like, this is making things so much worse. So I don't think cardio is bad. And I think if you like cardio, it makes you feel good. It's good for heart health. There's like so many good things. Like some mixing in some cardio is great, but again, it just depends on the woman. So I'm a big fan of movement. So walking, hiking, low-key biking, golfing, like things like that, I think are great because movement throughout your day, that really makes a difference as far as your blood sugar and insulin and whatnot. And I really think the people who are most active in their daily lives have the easiest time maintaining their weight. So, I mean, I just think longevity and, being 80 years old, I still want to be healthy and strong and all that.
Absolutely. And I think about that quite often. Clearly, we as a nation, we're just getting fatter, right? There's more diets than ever. There's more information out there. There's more places to work out, ways to work out. Why do we keep getting fatter versus, when everyone lived on a farm and just was active all day long and we all had jobs where we were moving and doing all that? It's like, if you look at it from that perspective, you're like, it's kind of like a no-brainer. Even if you don't talk about food and food quality and all that, we're just, here we are at our computers, sitting behind my desk. Like,
yep.
You just have to be intentional. And then also, it's always got to be that 5:15 a.m. class, right?
I know. I see that so much. And especially like these women who aren't sleeping through the night or they have little kids waking them up. And yeah, it's hard to tell them to be like, I don't know if that's the best time for you to work out. So it's hard because like you were saying, like to give up something like that or not do it. But again, it depends on the client. It depends. Some people can get up and work out at the hour and they're thriving and everything's great. But most of the women we work with are having issues
Yeah,
as far
I agree with you.
as health
So,
goes.
the other thing I wanted to talk about was because I've had a similar experience is when you first started tracking, you mentioned you had this like weird relationship with carbohydrates. Can you
Yeah.
explain that complicated relationship? Because I think it'll be enlightening and people are going to be like, oh, I do that too. Or
Yes, yes. So carbs, yeah. I was that person. I was afraid of carbohydrates. Like carbs make you fat. And of course, depending on the type of carbohydrates you're eating, sure, there are some, good and bad carbs for sure. But I would like rarely hit my macros as far as the carbs go because if I did hit them, it was because I was eating donuts or drinking wine or just consuming junk. And the more I learned about carbohydrates and fiber and things like that, like again, you need carbohydrates to build muscle, to have energy, to produce progesterone and things like that. Like there's a lot of good reasons for carbohydrates and fiber in your diet. So now that I eat enough carbohydrates and fuel my workouts properly and recover from them properly, like I'm not sore all the time. I'm not in a bad mood all the time. I have energy. I sleep better. So I do think there's a difference between like donuts and cookies and like chips and whatnot versus fruit. I think fruit is wonderful. Squashes and root vegetables and beans and lentils and things that have nutrients and fiber. I think your body responds to them very, very differently than a donut or a glass of wine or something. But this is carrots and cake world, so I'm not poo-pooing
right.
those.
No, of course. They have a place.
I have donuts, all of that. But most of my diet is the good, healthy carbs. And honestly, I feel so much better. And having these conversations with our clients, like simply having them eat more carbohydrates, especially like around their workouts and whatnot, they feel so much better. Their energy is more balanced, better moods. They're not crashing in the afternoon. They're not super sore from a workout for 5 days. Like so many things can change just by eating more carbohydrates.
Yeah, it's so interesting. One of my big platforms is, don't train in a fasted state. And of course, women have done it for years and we think we're going to burn more fat if we go and do a training session fasted. I'm like, just try it. I have yet to have someone come back to me and say, oh man, I really wish I wouldn't have had that banana before I worked out. They're like, yes, this changed my training. I feel so much better. So yeah, they're not bad. But so what are your favorite carbohydrates? I mean, you just mentioned a bunch of them. What are your favorite carbs that you like to eat?
Oh man, so many. I probably eat a banana every single day. I just love bananas. Bananas. I'm a big fan of beans just because they're like a heavy hitter when it comes to fiber and they're like really filling.
Yeah.
So I like those. Like I said, squashes, always some sort of butternut, acorn squash. I'm trying to think what else I've been into. Like, oh, potatoes. We eat potatoes every single week. And again, I feel like potatoes get a bad rap,
Oh,
but
potatoes. Yeah.
I know, and they're so good for you. There's so much potassium in them. And most women we work with are low in potassium. And when you're low in potassium, you could potentially have blood sugar issues, thyroid issues. So we're big into like the minerals and mineral balancing. So I love potatoes. My family loves potatoes, but I just feel like if you're eating these good carbohydrates around some sort of movement, like it's fine as far as like blood sugar goes and whatnot. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I can't eat potatoes because it's gonna spike my blood sugar. And I'm like, yes, but you could pair that with protein, with fat. You could eat them before or after a workout. You could go for a walk after you eat them. There's so many ways to balance your blood sugar and your food choices. And honestly, like a potato compared to like a donut,
Right.
I don't know.
I know. I always say, I'm like, this poor potato. This potato
Mhm.
didn't do anything. It's what we did. It's what we did to the potato, right? We cut it up, we deep fried it, we covered it in butter and sour cream and cheese, which are all yummy, but it's
Yeah.
not the potato. It's the other thing. So I feel for the potato. I will eat that potato tonight in honor of you,
So
Tina.
good for you. They're so good for you.
Oh, what else did I want to ask you about? Oh, also with these carbohydrates, a lot of times we run into issues with clients in like their reverse diet after they finish a fat loss phase. And this is where they kind of do, I don't want to say make mistakes, but once they do have that ability to add in more carbohydrates, we do sometimes turn more to another glass of wine or a cook. I mean, I'm guilty as charged, not with the wine. That's not my thing, but cookies and ice cream are my thing. Like, oh, great. I have 200 more calories. Let's have a couple of cookies, which can fit in, but we are better serving ourselves if we can incorporate all those things that you just mentioned. Do you walk people through that process through a reverse diet?
Oh, we sure do. We love reverse diets.
Okay.
They're
Okay,
my
let's talk about this. Um,
Yeah,
do you ever get resistance?
all the time.
Thank you.
All the time. I mean,
That was
I
a
have,
question for me.
yeah, I have clients now that they have like a certain number in mind and they just mentally can't get past eating more than that. Like they're really afraid. But for me, I think a lot of times it is kind of having that little heart to heart with them. It's like what you're doing now isn't working. And the reason you hired me is that you want to have these body composition changes. So let's try doing something different. And yeah, that mindset is really, really hard. Like I can't eat more than 1,400 calories. I can't eat more than 1,500 calories. It can be really hard, but I do think like the reverse in the sense that you're like eking up the calories. But I think from, a client standpoint, it really is about trying it and being open to it and then trusting your body that you're not going to gain 5 pounds overnight because you're eating 50 calories more. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So
50. 50,
slow. It's slow. It's very, very slow. And yeah, we have success with them. I think a lot of times like the scale kind of stays the same, or maybe it goes up like a couple pounds, but the body composition changes so much. And, we're big into photos, just seeing
Yes.
how the body actually changes. And I can't tell you how many reverse diets we've done where we've taken somebody from 12 or 1,400 calories to well over 2,000 calories, and they get more muscle on their body. And like the scale kind of stays the same, maybe like up 2 pounds or something, but their body looks totally different. They're so much healthier. Their thyroid's back in range. Like, yeah, we love a good reverse diet for sure.
And as a coach, it is sometimes hard to have that conversation. That's why I love talking about it over and over again, just to help. It's mostly women, but it's not just women. Like men have the same issues, I have learned. But it is okay. It is okay to eat more and you can trust your body. And I always had to put myself back in my very first reverse diet where I didn't know how my body would respond, but it was fine. Like you said, the scale really didn't change, but my body totally changed. It was truly the best thing I ever did
Mm-hmm.
for probably my relationship with food and for my physique is that reverse diet. So I could actually see, oh, I can eat more than 2,000 calories a day. And that's generous for a lot of people. Like you're right, 1,400, 1,500, that's honestly just no way to live. People don't
Mm-hmm.
realize.
Yeah. And I feel like women don't realize when they're eating that few calories, like they aren't feeling their best. And when they start eating more, they feel so much better. Like I had a client just say this the other day. She's like, I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. Like this is crazy. My workouts feel so much better. And she's just eating more. It's not like we did anything magical, she's just literally eating more, but it happens all the time that women are like, I feel better. And I'm like, hey, you got more energy. This is great.
So glad.
So it's hard to get people over that hump, but I think once they start doing it and they start paying attention more to their biofeedback and how their body's responding, then they kind of get on board with it. But it's definitely hard because I mean it's so counterintuitive to eat more to change your body when we've been programmed for decades of our lives to eat less, work out more, and a lot of times it is like just the opposite.
Yeah. And I mean, that is why, the women that we work with, we have our work cut out for us because of all of that programming. Not only that, like we were immersed in, but also our parents. And again, I say parents because it wasn't just our moms. I mean, I know my dad, like, oh, Atkins, cool, and some fast shakes. So that was around me my entire life. So it's like, it's no wonder we have these issues and hangups with eating more.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's crazy. So tell us more about carrots and cake and how like people can work with you and all of that.
Yeah. Would love to work with you. So you can find me at carrotsandcake.com. I'm also really active on Instagram. I'd say that's probably where I'm most active. But we do have our functional testing program where we run hormone testing, gut testing, and mineral testing. And the combination of those three tests are awesome. Like you just get some really good information there. We also do straight up macro coaching, but we do have a very holistic approach that we're not just giving somebody a set of macros and sending them on their way. Like we really try to get to know you and what's going on with your lifestyle, your mindset, things like that. And then I have a group coaching program that actually just kicked off this week. So the next one's not running to the fall, but it's called Fit and Fueled. And it's all about fueling your body properly. I mean, it's a lot of things that I've talked about here, but again, it's not a macro tracking challenge. It's not starving yourself or anything like that. It really is a holistic approach. And my whole thing is not overwhelming people, not giving them 6 million things to do all at once. Because, like a lot of these programs, like you sign up for it and they just give you 6,000 things to do. They're like, you got to clean out your pantry and clean out your fridge and got to go grocery shopping and start this new workout plan and eat more protein. It's like 6,000 things. And I feel like it just sets women up for failure because it's too much at once. Like they can't do it all. So long story short, the whole point of Fit and Fueled, it's strategic. And I take you through a very step-by-step process as far as how to fuel your body, figure out what to eat for your body. And then of course, change your body composition. I mean, that's like the ultimate goal for a lot of these women.
Yeah. And like that is possible even in our 40s. I mean, case in point right here, right? We are in our 40s. We're doing pretty good if I do speak for both of us. You know what I mean? It's possible. With that testing, how often do you recommend? Like, is that an annual thing someone should do?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on the person. I would say every 6 months is kind of like a nice place as far as like the retest goes. But I'm also in the camp that like if you're feeling better and like you're losing weight and everything, like you don't need a retest. You know what I mean? Like if your body is saying you have more energy, your periods are irregular, you lost 10 pounds, I'm like, don't spend your money on a test.
Yeah.
But if you're somebody that's really struggling, you're like, well, I might have thyroid issues or blood sugar issues, or my hormones are really preventing me from losing weight. Yeah, a test can be really helpful. I mean, just like what I was saying with the cortisol, like I knew I was stressed, but I needed it kind of on paper and black and white to be like, no, really, you need to make changes. So sometimes just having that data can be motivation and light a fire under your butt.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then what is this book that you've written? I didn't realize that. Please share.
Yeah, so I've technically written 3 books. I've had a history online. Yeah. I've done all sorts of stuff. But the one I like to talk about is called the Everything Macro Diet Cookbook. And it's all macro-friendly recipes. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. But my whole thing is let's make this simple. So like the recipes don't have 6 million ingredients. I mean, some of them are like 3 ingredient recipes, but they have all the macros on them. And there's a lot of fun stuff in there too. There's like, high fiber brownies and high protein cookies and, like kind of like those fun treats in there. But most of it is gluten-free. I tend to eat gluten-free. So if you're somebody that's in that same boat, most of the recipes are gluten-free, but they're all simple. It's like stuff that you already have in your fridge or your pantry. Like you're not running to the store for like arrowroot powder and like weird stuff like that. It's just like the normal things that you have in your house. And I'm all about like, I love food, but I'm also like, I just want to eat, like, let's just cook something and eat it. I don't want it to be like a whole production, but super straightforward. Like I said, Amazon, Barnes and Noble.
Cool. I'll totally check that out. Because if it's not easy, I won't make it. If it's not easy, if I'm tracking, I sure as hell am not going to log it. I'll be straight up with people. If it's complicated, I'm not logging it. And then also my husband he's got celiacs. So I try and eat gluten-free. I get in trouble sometimes because I sprinkle wheat around. So not on purpose. I just forget.
Yeah.
But I get talked to about it. Well, this is great. So we can find you on Instagram. Your website is it carrotsandcake.com?
Yep, carrotsandcake.com. I'm Carrots and Cake everywhere. I do have a podcast and a YouTube channel and all that. I need to get the podcast like really rolling again, but there's plenty of episodes if you want to check it out.
Wow. And you have a lot going on, right? We're not trying to add more to your plate, Tina.
Type A personality. I just try to do everything.
But I do love podcasting is my favorite. Like it is my absolute favorite thing to do. And so thanks for your time, like for joining me today. I just feel like we're talking to the same people, but we can't say what we're saying enough because I bet every time you get a new client, you start a new group program, you hear the same things. You look at what someone's been eating and you're like, okay, we have some work to do. where you're like,
Yes.
hey, you aren't getting any sleep and you are going to 5:15 F45. So yeah, it's like,
Yeah. 45 is another one. Yeah.
I mean, and you've been talking about this since 2006, and I'm sure what you've said has changed in that time. Well, before
Yeah.
we wrap up, can I ask you that about that? Like, how have things changed from 2006 to now?
Oh my God, so much for sure. I mean, I used to do the marathon thing. I ran marathons for years, years and years. Yeah, and half marathons and like kind of ran myself into the ground a little bit there. But I just feel like information changes so quickly. So I've just, I love this stuff. Like I literally like this is what I do in my pastime is read books about nutrition, read books about cholesterol and fluoride and like listen to podcasts. Like I love this stuff. And honestly, I think it's good to change your mind. I think if I didn't change my mind in 15 years of being on the internet, there'd be something wrong with me. So for me, back in the day, I thought running was where it was at, but I can honestly tell you, you can go back to my blog post. I gained weight every single time I ran a marathon. So you know what? However many years later, like I was doing things wrong back then.
Yeah.
Too much running, too much eating, blood sugar issues. Yeah, all the things. But yeah, just over the years, I've just really changed. And then also, I'm 15 years older. So I'm not, 28 when I started my blog and being online, I'm almost 43. So, things have to change. And I think, yeah, it's been a fun transition over the years. And, I love to learn. So I am constantly trying to educate myself, join new programs, new trainings and whatnot. And yeah, just doing my best to share this information without making people crazy. Because I do think I see a lot of crazy in this like internet space when it comes
Oh,
to.
yes. Somebody asked me yesterday about lectins and if they should not eat lectins. And I was like, eat your beans, girl. Eat your beans.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the oxalate argument. I've heard, nightshades, like all that. I've also been down that road myself.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm too lazy to go down that road, just so you know. So my laziness works in my favor in that area. But yeah, there is a lot. But all the more reason to listen to Tina. So this is great. Thank you again for your time. This has been a lot of fun. I'll send everyone your way, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You bet. Talk to you soon.
Bye.